So today I was on TikTok and I started getting a lot of notifications, a lot of comments from people on one of my more popular videos telling me that I needed to just give it up. It's time to stop making videos because I have been debunked. I have been proven wrong. They tagged this guy, Brooks Phillips, who has made videos about me in the past. He has made response videos and we've kind of had some back and forth. But he responded to a video that I posted recently on TikTok. It was a little bit of a hot take video and he had some things to say. And so I thought, let's hear him out. Let's hear what he has to say. And I found his response super interesting. So I just kind of wanted to discuss it here and talk about his response to my video. So this is me responding to someone who was responding to me. Let's see what Brooks Phillips has to say.
Your God cursed all of humanity because two people ate a piece of fruit.
All right, everyone, buckle up. Firstly, we understand Adam as our representative before God, so he acted on our behalf. It is plausible that God created this specific world with us in mind, knowing that if we were in Adam's position, we would have chosen the same thing. So there is no misrepresentation, and it's fair. Secondly, there are a variety of views in Christianity on original sin, so there can't really be an issue here.
This guy talks very fast, and I can relate. I am a fast talker too, but I feel as though he just blurts things out and then just moves on without actually explaining those things. And though I'm a fast talker, also tend to be an explainer. I like to really flesh out the things that I say. So this is done a lot, I think, in churches because it's easy to just blurt something out to make it sound intellectual and then just move on before you actually have to really unpack it. But I'm going to be unpacking the things he says because they're kind of out there. And you just have to just accept that this is the reality of the situation. And most of the things that he's claiming to be the reality of the situation are just really absurd. So the first thing he says is Adam was a representative and he acted on our behalf. I did not give consent to that. I didn't give consent to Adam acting on my behalf. We should all be representing ourselves. We should all be responsible for ourselves. I said God cursed all of humanity because two people ate a piece of fruit, and that's pretty much what it's reduced down to. And he says, well, yeah, because Adam was acting on our behalf, and so we have to be punished for the thing that he did. You're just going to say that and then just move on? And we're just supposed to accept that? That's a fair system? That somebody that I did not know, that I've never met, that was created thousands of years ago is representing me, a person who is not yet even born? And then I have to be punished for what that person does? And you're just going to put that out there and move on. Okay, all right.
It is plausible that God created this specific world with us in mind, knowing that if we were in Adam's position, we would have chosen the same thing.
It's plausible that God created this world, this system, with us in mind, knowing that if we were in Adam's position, we would have done the same thing. Why is that? Why is God creating human beings who will all disobey him, all rebel against him, or make our own choices, essentially, and then punishing us for doing just that? If we were all going to act that way, well, then I think that means we're all programmed to act that way. We're all created to act that way. So wouldn't that be a flaw in our design and our programming? And wouldn't that go back to being God's fault?
So there is no misrepresentation, and it's fair.
There is no misrepresentation and it's fair because we all would have done it anyway. So, okay, all right.
Secondly, there are a variety of views in Christianity on original sin, so there can't really be an issue here.
There are a variety of views on original sin, so there can't be an issue. Everyone has different opinions about what this means, so there's really no issue. That is the issue. That is the issue. None of y'all can agree with one another.
Your God turned a woman to salt because she looked back at her home while it was burning to the ground and he didn't like that she did that.
Firstly, an angel warned them not to look back, so they were aware.
Firstly, an angel warned them. Two men walked into the city claiming to be angels of the Lord. Actually, they didn't claim to be angels of the Lord. The men that walked up to the city that Lot invited into the home, he didn't know they were angels. They didn't say that they were angels. They were just house guests. And those house guests told them, hey, don't look back when your house is burning to the ground. I think it's perfectly natural to look back as your home burns to the ground. And God did not warn them. Angels, as far as she knew, didn't warn them. Two house guests did. So the moral of the story is not to obey God. It is to obey whatever men who claim to be sent from God tell you. That's the narrative you want to go with?
Secondly, she disregarded God by looking back at the sinful city after being saved from it, so God judged her.
Well, again, God did not tell her not to do that. She didn't disobey God by looking back at a sinful city. If God is so insecure that he can't handle someone just looking back at their home while it's burning, that's a God problem. That's not a person problem. That wasn't her problem. It is a perfectly natural human reaction to look back at your home as it burns to the ground. I don't think the story of Lot and Sodom was real. I don't think it was a literal account. However, this person does, obviously, and this person thinks that it's justified that someone should be snapped out of existence because they do the natural human thing by looking back at a city. And she should have known not to do it because some men told her. And so God judged her. God didn't judge her. God snapped her out of existence. But he saved Lot after Lot had just offered his daughters up to be raped by the men in the city. But God never told him not to do that, so I guess it's okay.
And her husband had just offered his daughters up to be group assaulted by some men. And later on in the Bible, he's called a righteous man.
Righteous does not mean perfect.
I never said righteous meant perfect. So.
It does not mean God supports every action of a righteous man.
Okay, but I don't consider men who offer their daughters up to be group assaulted by other men to be anywhere close to righteous.
Your God sent angels down to the earth, and then they started mating with human beings and creating giants, and it got so out of control and made God so regretful that he drowned everyone in a flood.
God flooded the earth because he saw that there was only evil all the time.
He didn't plan for that? Did he not create the world knowing what it would become? Did he not create all of the people who became so evil? Did he not create the angels that he sent down to earth to mate with the human beings and then create their genetics in such a way that when they mixed, they created evil people? I mean, does God have no foresight? Is this God not omniscient? Does he not see the future? Does he not know these things are going to happen? He does them anyway, and then he gets so angry about the results that he already knew were going to happen, and then he has to drown everyone? And everyone on earth was evil? All of the animals God drowned? All of the babies that were drowned in the flood?
And life is a gift from God, so he's not obligated to continue giving it.
Life is a gift from God. Tell that to every child who doesn't know if they're going to be able to eat dinner. Tell that to every child who's in a home where their parents beat them every single day. Walk into a hospital and look at someone who has spent their entire life suffering a disease or chronic illness and tell them life is a gift. If you aren't born into privilege, if you aren't born into a family that takes care of you, into a church that supports you, if you aren't born into a country that takes care of you or a community that takes care of you, life is not always a gift.
Yeah. Suppose I decide to give you $20 today, and tomorrow, and the day after that. And then on the 10th day, I stop giving it. Do not say this is unfair because you had no right to it in the first place. It was a gift. Especially if I stop because I find out you're using it only for evil. I can stop giving this gift whenever I want. In the same way, you cannot say it's unfair for God to stop giving this gift by flooding the earth because of evil.
This is a really unfair analogy, and it's a false equivalence. God is not just giving everyone $20 every day and then one day decides to stop giving everyone $20. That analogy doesn't fit what we're talking about here. It would be more like if you said, hey, I'm going to give you $20 every single day, but you have to worship me and you have to do whatever I say. You have to follow all of my rules. I don't want your $20. If that's the condition, I don't want your $20. I didn't need God to put me here. I didn't ask for this existence. Nobody has consented to this existence. So it's not the same because we were forced into this existence. Then we were forced to follow the rules that God laid out in this existence. And then we were called evil for not following those rules. And then when God drowns us all in a flood, he says, well, you deserved it. You didn't appreciate the gift I was giving you. You were using my gift for evil. Yet God will give people this gift of life and make them suffer. Look at Job. He took everything away from Job. He made Job suffer just to win a bet against the devil. And Job was still expected to praise him and worship him and love him. That's not a gift. That is not a gift. That's abuse. That's God creating Sims and then removing the ladder from the pool and saying, you must worship me even when I remove the ladder. Human beings are much kinder to their Sims because I don't think any of us expect the Sims to worship us, right? We might stick them in the pool without a ladder. We might stick them in the basement without a door, but I don't think any of us are expecting that Sim's going to get on its knees and worship us.
And then he repopulated the entire earth with one family.
Firstly, there are reasons to believe that the flood is regional, but spoken of hyperbolically.
That's not what it says. It says everything on earth was covered. The highest mountains on earth were covered. 15 cubits or whatever above the tallest mountain. Everything on the earth was destroyed. Everything died. That's the point of the story. The point of the story is that every single person was evil and he had to wipe out every living thing on earth. And there was one family to repopulate the earth. That's the entire story. So you're denying what the story actually says. Yes, there are people that argue that it might have been regional, but that goes against everything the text actually states.
It's possible that God created other people which we are unaware of. Thirdly, what would be the issue? God just used that way for that specific instance.
What would be the issue with incest? That's what he just asked. What would be the issue with one family repopulating the earth? Would this guy get it on with his cousins to repopulate the earth? Defending incest is not really a good look for your religion. I gotta say, it's just a bad look.
Your God can't forgive people without the spilling of blood. Your God...
Okay, what are you getting at?
I'm getting at the fact that your God is bloodthirsty and it's weird.
We all know what the wages of sin are. So if someone does not pay my penalty, I'll have to.
We all know what the wages of sin are? No, we don't. We know that you claim that the wages of sin is death according to an ancient text that you're taking as truth. But we don't all know that. What are you talking about? Christians love to pretend like we all know this. This is what we know. No, it's what you're claiming to believe, and you're expecting me to believe it too with zero evidence or good reason to believe it.
Secondly, this is an unjustified assumption. In Christianity, there are necessitarian views of the atonement and non-necessitarian views.
Okay, are you going to finish the argument? This is what I mean. He just spouts off. He just parrots things that he heard an apologist say or heard his pastor say, and then he just moves on. He doesn't actually explain he says, well, some Christians believe this and some Christians believe that. What does it matter?
Your God used to make people kill animals just so they could be forgiven.
Yes, that was God's judgment at the time. Do you think animals are more valuable than humans?
No, but I don't know how that relates to what I said.
And then he killed the firstborn of every family who didn't have the blood over the door.
Again, God is loving, but he also is a judge. My point about God creating everything and life being a gift applies here.
God created you, and he can kill you. He can do whatever he wants. I brought you into this world, and I can take you out of it. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, and it doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it moral. Having the ability to do something does not make it a moral action. And so when you say God can do whatever he wants, God created us, he can do whatever he wants with us. Yeah, sure. I agree with that. He can do whatever he wants with us if he created us. I don't have to see him as good for it. And if he is the one that gave me my moral code to determine what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, that I'm using the moral code he gave me to determine that he's being immoral and he doesn't follow his own rules. He wants us to be perfect. Perfect. But he's allowed to do whatever he wants, and we're supposed to call him good for it while thinking that we are bad for the things that we do. And most of us aren't walking around just killing the firstborn of, whoever doesn't obey us.
God did kill his own child just so he could forgive you.
Actually, people crucify Jesus.
That's true.
And Jesus is willing to go to the cross. And this was all motivated by love. Don't twist it.
No, it was motivated by his own bizarre need to satisfy his own need for blood atonement. That you're twisting it by calling it love. It's not loving to tell people that they are so terrible and awful and horrible because they don't love and obey you, that you need to send them to hell for all of eternity. And in order to avoid that, you have to kill yourself essentially so that you can guilt them and shame them into loving you back because you did this great thing that you never really had to do because you're the one that made up the rule that you needed blood to be spilled in the first place in order to forgive people. That's not love. And I'm so sorry that somebody taught this person that is the definition of love, but that is guilt and manipulation. That's not love. Jesus did not have to die for anyone. He didn't have to do it. He could just forgive people. He could do that. He created the system by which he decided that blood had to be spilled in order for people to be forgiven. He had to satisfy his own rules. He had to act as a scapegoat for his own rules. And then he says, well, you better love me back because look what I did for you. Okay, Jesus, but you never had to do that. I never asked you to do that. I didn't consent to this existence in the first place. I didn't consent to the system. He didn't really take the punishment. He didn't really do much. And if you're God of the universe and you get to be king forever and you never have to suffer again, does it really matter if he suffered for a couple days and died? No, because in a trillion years, it's not going to matter. He had to satisfy his own rules that he made up in the first place. Unnecessary rules. So,
yeah, I'm the sick one.
There's no reason to call each other sick. Throughout this video, the framing of your statements were dishonest.
No, you agreed with everything I said. That's the thing. It's so funny how like all these people came to my comments and they were like, you've been debunked. You've been proven wrong. He agreed with everything I said. He just found ways to justify it. He didn't say, you're wrong about this. He said, well, yeah, but that's how God wanted to do it. So how was I being dishonest? The reason he thinks I was being dishonest is because I wasn't rationalizing incest. I wasn't justifying these atrocities. I wasn't justifying the manipulation and the guilt. Because I didn't give the apologetic, narrative. I'm being dishonest? Because I'm pretty sure he agreed with pretty much everything I said. He's like, yeah, that's how it goes. Why are you questioning it? What's the problem?
And making statements is not an argument.
Making statements is not an argument, says the guy who just spent 2 minutes only making statements and making zero arguments whatsoever. He literally just spouted off statements and then moved on without actually making an argument behind those statements. So this projection is gold. It's gold.
And these statements have no bearing on whether Jesus rose from the dead.
I never said that they did. Again, this is just a Christian who is not recognizing that the argument isn't, I don't agree with this, therefore God isn't real. The argument is, I don't agree with this, it doesn't make sense, and I'm not going to obligate myself to it. That's a very different argument than Jesus didn't die or raised from the dead. That's not the argument I'm making. I never claimed to be making that argument at all in this video. I never said that because I don't agree with it, it's not real. It doesn't follow, and it's not an argument I would make. So we're kind of straw manning my position here, but that's very on brand.
Which we have good reason to believe.
You have good reason to believe. I don't have good reason to believe.
And by the way, regarding sick, religiosity is strongly associated with better mental health. God bless.
So this is loaded, and I actually want to talk about this in a different video because I don't want to go all into all of this today, but I have to say that religiosity being associated with good mental health could be boiled down to the fact that when you are in a religion and you're in a religious environment, you have a community, you have support. Community is very important to us as a species. And so when you are raised in an environment where you have an entire church community surrounded around you, supporting you and encouraging you and cheering you on, that is going to give you better mental health. If you are in a community, a secular community that is doing the same thing, you're also going to experience better mental health. That's just kind of how that goes. When you walk away from religion, like I did, when you walk away from, everything you've ever known, everything you know to be true, your entire reality changes before your eyes. That is really heavy hitting, and that's a really difficult thing to deal with. And so a lot of people who walk away from the church not only walk away from their beliefs, but they walk away from everything they've ever known. They walk away from their entire community, and they lose the love and support of the people that were supposed to love and support them. That's going to take a toll on people's mental health. And I think another thing to consider is the fact that these studies might not be totally complete because a lot of people within these communities tend to ignore their mental health. They don't actually recognize their mental health issues, and they just kind of put a brave face on and they put a big smile on and they sing the songs and they say the prayers and they share the joy of the Lord with the joy of the Lord with the world, and then they go home and they're depressed and they're anxious and they're not actually facing their problems head on. because the church does not address mental health the way it's supposed to. And it makes people feel as though if they aren't receiving the joy and the help from Jesus, that they're doing something wrong. And so a lot of people don't like to actually admit that they're going through something. They don't like to admit that they're having struggles. They just pretend like they're not. And so I don't know that we're really getting a clear picture of the mental health status of people in these communities. Also, religiosity contributes to good mental health, not being a Christian. This applies across the board to all religions, not just Christianity. And that right there should tell you a lot about this claim, that it has nothing to do with belief in Jesus or Jesus rising from the dead or any of that. It has to do with community. It has to do with being in a like-minded group of people that love and support and encourage you. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of communities that are secular. We don't have those kind of resources. The church is a very old kind of system. They've been building up for a long time. They have a lot of money and resources that those who aren't in the church do not have. So to just boil religiosity is better for your mental health down to Christianity is true and Jesus rose from the dead, and that's proof, the connection's not being made there, and you're really not considering all of the other factors within religiosity that help people and their mental health. The indoctrination is very strong in this person. He seems very smart, very intellectual. But I do think that he spends a lot of time listening to apologists and pastors, and then he just kind of repeats what they say and doesn't really apply a lot of his own thought to it, because I'm really not hearing his thoughts in any of this. I'm just kind of hearing repeated apologetics. And that's what people in the church are programmed to do. They're programmed to learn these things, to memorize them, and then to just kind of parrot them back out without actually allowing those things to go through a critical thought process. And so I would encourage this person to really start sitting down and thinking for himself instead of just allowing his pastors and apologists, to tell him what to think and how to make these arguments, because he's really not making arguments. He's giving, these kind of apologetic reasons that he thinks that these things are okay, but he's not actually making arguments himself. And then he accuses me of not making arguments for myself. And I think that is really interesting. But I think it's really important to have this kind of back and forth. I think these videos can be really helpful for people who are kind of like stuck in the in-between and feel as though both sides are making great points, so you really have to kind of hear these things unpacked and talked out so that you can kind of get your brain going and get the wheels turning and really start thinking about it for yourself. Don't just take whatever I'm saying or take whatever he's saying and run with it. Take what both of us are saying, carefully examine it, think about it for yourself, and decide, well, what do I believe about this? How do I feel about this? What's rational? What's reasonable? What's fair? What's good? What's bad? What do I think about this? It's really important that you ask yourself that over and over and over again when you are deconstructing, to make it a habit, a practice, because so often in the church we're taught, do not think for yourself. Do not think about it too much. Just listen and obey. Have faith. And so we're trained to not trust ourselves. We're trained to not care how we feel about it, because how we feel is irrelevant when it comes to God. So it's really important that we make it a practice in our lives, that we really just sit down and think, what do I think about this? How do I feel about this? What do I conclude? What feels right to me? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.